Hello, and welcome to the Harlem Condo Sale Report. I'm broker Joe Davila of Sotheby's International Realty. Today, we're going to be taking a look at all of the condo apartments that sold here in Harlem during the fourth quarter of 2021. So if you are ever curious to know what your home is likely worth in today's market, you generally don't want to go further back than 90 to 180 days to see what is actually sold that is most similar to your home. This is very similar to how a bank appraises an apartment. A bank will look at what actually has sold that's nearest your home that is most similar to your home. And when you look at a bank appraisal, it will list those various properties showing you what their actual sold and closed price is at. For example, let's say you have a 2-bedroom, you live south of 125th Street, you're in a doorman elevator. And if there were sales in your building, we would start there first. But if there weren't any sales in your building, we're going to look at all those other like-kind buildings to see what those 2 bedrooms had sold for. That will help us determine the value for your apartment. So you can rely on my report to have a better understanding for what your home is worth in today's market. So without further ado, let's take a look at what is sold and we'll jump right into it. Now, before we look at the apartments that have sold, I want to remind you that I can email you a PDF version of this quarterly report. Now, I'll show you in a moment on the screen here that you can click onto the address, and if you do, you're then taken over to another page where you can then view the photographs, the floor plan, and more details of that particular home. So whereas we're just looking at addresses here, by clicking the address, you will open a completely different window that will reveal the photographs, floor plan, and more details of that particular apartment. So while it's nice to look at this on YouTube, you can reach out to me at joe.davila@sotheby's.realty, and I can email this as a report so you can get more details. Okay, so we'll have a look at all of the apartments that were at least 4 bedrooms or larger, which there were 4 apartments that sold, the highest price being at 145 Central Park North, selling at $4,995,000. Second highest price selling at 285 West 110th at $4,960,000. Third highest, which happens to be the 6-bedroom apartment that sold at 1845 Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard, and that sold for $4.8 million. And also 4 West 116th Street, selling for $2,210,000. That concludes the 4 bedrooms or larger that have sold during the fourth quarter of 2021. Now let's go ahead and look at all of the 3 bedrooms that sold. Now, before we look at the apartments that have sold, I want to remind you that I can email you a PDF version of this quarterly report. Now, I'll show you in a moment on the screen here that you can click onto the address, and if you do, you're then taken over to another page where you can view the photographs, the floor plan, and more details of that particular home. You can reach out to me at joe.davila@sotheby's.realty, and I'll email the report to you in a PDF format. Now let's move on and have a look at the 3 bedrooms. The 3 bedrooms that sold during the fourth quarter of 2021. Now keep in mind there were 20 apartments that sold. So that'd be too long to go through each and every one of them. So what I've done is I've broken them down by doorman and townhouse. Okay, so of the 3-bedroom doorman elevator buildings that have sold, 16 apartments sold during the fourth quarter of 2021. The highest price being at 145 Central Park North, selling at $3,200,000. We have 2 median priced homes that split the difference between what's below it and what's above it. The first is 1845 Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard, selling for $1,735,000. So from that point and up, all those are the highest priced apartments. And then the one just below it at 2280 Frederick Douglass Boulevard 10D, selling at $1,693,000. Those are the apartments that sold below the median. and start falling into the lower end of the 3-bedroom price range. The lowest priced 3-bedroom to sell was at 68 Bradhurst, apartment 6C, selling at $950,000. So let's now have a look at the 3 bedrooms that was sold in walk-up buildings, primarily townhouses, of which there were only 2 that sold, one being at 131 West 122nd Street, and that sold for $1,540,000, whereas the other walk-up 3-bedroom to sell was at 143 West 128th Street, selling for $748,000. So that concludes all of the 3 bedrooms. Now, before we look at the apartments that have sold, I want to remind you that I can email you a PDF version of this quarterly report. Now, I'll show you in a moment on the screen here that you can click onto the address, and if you do, you then taken over to another page where you can view the photographs, the floor plan, and more details of that particular home. You can reach out to me at joe.davila@sotheby's.realty, and I'll email the report to you in a PDF format. Okay, so let's have a look at the number of 2 bedrooms that sold, of which there were 30 apartments that sold. Now this covers all types of buildings. That's doorman, non-doorman, elevator and non-elevator, and townhouses. So this encompasses all of the 30 apartments that have sold. Now the highest priced 2-bedroom to sell sold at 145 Central Park North, apartment 10B, and the median price is between these 2 apartments at 257 West 117th Street, apartment 4C, selling at $999,999. It's a great way to avoid the mansion tax. And the other median price home to sell is 300 West 135th Street, unit 12J, selling at $999,000. The lowest priced apartment to sell sold at 2072 Frederick Douglass Boulevard, apartment 5B, selling at $527,375. Now, moving on regarding the 2 bedrooms, of the 30 apartments to sell, 20 of them were in doorman buildings. So if you are looking to compare like kind apartments and you're in a doorman building, this is where you're going to want to start. And you want to pick it apart because if you're south of 125th Street, you want to look at those buildings that are south of 125th Street. Whereas if you're north of 125th Street, well, you want to look north. Now, you always want to start with your building. But if you don't find your building on this list, well then we'll have to find the nearest building to yours that is most similar in other features as well. So there you have it. Oh, I should also mention here that these are the 5 walk-up apartments that did sell. The highest price being pretty good, $1,587,500. So that's pretty good for a walk-up building. That's likely a townhouse. Now, before we look at the apartments that have sold, I want to remind you that I can email you a PDF version of this quarterly report. Now, I'll show you in a moment on the screen here that you can click onto the address, and if you do, you then taken over to another page where you can view the photographs, the floor plan, and more details of that particular home. You can reach out to me at joe.davila@sotheby's.realty, and I'll email the report to you in a PDF format. Okay, so let's now have a look at the 1 bedrooms that sold during the 4th quarter of 2021, of which there were 12 apartments to sell. Now, the highest priced 1 bedroom to sell sold at 145 Central Park North, apartment 3C, selling at $1,180,000. We have 2 median price homes, and the first one sold at 137 Central Park North, unit 3C, selling at $750,000. And so at that point and above is where half the apartments sold, and 1330 Fifth Avenue 6L selling at $726,000, and below is where the other half sold. So those are the 2 median prices. The lowest priced apartment to sell sold at 234 West 148th Street, unit 4E. Please note that 234 West 148 is the only non-doorman building to sell. All the others are in doorman buildings. So that concludes the sales for the one bedrooms. We'll now move on to the studios and have a look at that. Now, before we look at the apartments that have sold, I want to remind you that I can email you a PDF version of this quarterly report. Now, I'll show you in a moment on the screen here that you can click onto the address, and if you do, you're then taken over to another page where you can view the photographs, the floor plan, and more details of that particular home. You can reach out to me at joe.davila@sotheby's.realty, and I'll email the report to you in a PDF format. Okay, so these are the last of the apartments we're going to take a look at today, which are the studios. There were 6 studios that sold here in Harlem during the fourth quarter of 2021. Let's have a look at them. 3 have sold south of 125th Street, whereas 3 sold north of 125th Street. And the highest priced apartment to sell sold at 220 West 148th Street, Unit 2P, coming in at $634,000. The lowest priced studio to sell sold at 48 West 138th Street, Unit 2N, closing in at $295,000. So the median priced homes to sell, which are 2, was at 11 Hancock Place, Unit 606, coming in at $595,000. And just below that, 145 Central Park North, Unit 1A, selling at $550,000. That concludes the Harlem Condo Sale Report for all of the sales that transacted during the fourth quarter of 2021. If you had stayed with me this entire time, thank you very much for doing so. Hopefully you learned a little something about where the apartments had closed. Remember, my report is always meant to reveal the actual selling price of the apartments that have sold. And similarly to a bank appraisal, we want to know what the homes that have sold that are most similar to yours, so you can get a better understanding of what your home is likely worth. Now, do keep in mind that while this is a primer of what has transacted, for your particular apartment, if you're considering selling it and you want a more thorough analysis, there are other considerations that we have to make when determining the sale price for your particular apartment, whether it's south of 125th Street, whether it's north of 125th Street. Are you on a park block, or are you in the middle of a busy street? Are you on a high floor? Are you on a low floor? Are you in a doorman or non-doorman? Are you in an amenity-filled building or non-amenity-filled building? All of these factors will determine the value of your home. Now, as always, you're going to start within your building to get a better understanding of what's transacted there to help establish a value for your apartment. But if there hasn't been any recent sales in your building, well, then this is where looking at other like-kind apartments and buildings to see what has transacted there will help us better understand the value for your home. If you have any questions or comments, you're always welcome to reach out to me at joe.davila@sotheby's.realty. I thank you very much. Have a fantastic 2022. And keep me in mind for all of your real estate needs, whether you're thinking of selling or renting. I'm always available to help you. All the best.